Good morning, church. How you doing? What a tragedy it is for those in Afghanistan. We get updates from time to time. But just a little report from our World Missions Department. Those in Afghan, it seems like peace would be impossible. But we're looking forward to those who God is going to help and hope that He'll be near to them. The Taliban is looking for people that have been a part of the government before, looking for those that are calling themselves Christians. They believe they're infidels, and so thousands of Christians are still living there. And let's pray for them today. Lord, I pray for those in Afghanistan that fear every moment for their life. We pray, oh God, that you would continue to help them reach out to you in faith. May every believer sense your presence in their life. We pray for those that don't know you. May they call out to Jesus, not even knowing who you are. Ask you to be their strength and be their help. Your word says, Lord, that we should pray for those that have rule over us. I pray for our president today. Put people in his life that can bring him to you. We pray that you'd give him wisdom in all of his decisions and that you would help him to become a person that would honor you. And we pray that you would help all of those that have lost loved ones, all of our servicemen's families that have gone into eternity. We pray that you would be with them today. Pray for those that are suffering in Haiti, that you would be near to them and give them strength. We pray that there would be a fight that comes within their spirit and they would never give up. We thank you for the privilege, O Lord, of serving you. In your powerful name we pray. Amen. Amen. Well, for those of you that don't know, most of you do, 99.9% know, but I'm Clarence St. John, the interim pastor here. And some people say, who cares? Just me, I guess. But it's good to be here. Vicki and I have really enjoyed being here. Vicki just got back. We brought our thumb drive this morning, plugged it in back there, and it didn't work. So she went home and redid it, got back in time for the message. Thank you, honey. All the work on the screen is not done by me, in case you wonder. That's all Vicki's work, and she's an amazing partner with me, and we've enjoyed over 50 years together. I know you didn't know I was that old, but anyway. I'm going to talk about the other little chips from Mark chapter 4. Perhaps you've heard the old adage, red skies in the morning, sailor take warning, red skies at night, sailor's delight. I know you haven't heard that before unless you're a sailor or something like that, but anyway, you've probably heard it. I never took that advantage this one day when Vicki's brother, who's always off doing something stupid, and he climbs mountains. He sleeps out overnight when it's 40 below. I can't train him. I've been trying to. But he's a wonderful man of adventure. And so he called me one day, and Vicki and I were down visiting the family, and he had purchased a sailboat. And he said, do you and Jason, my son who was 3, want to go with me? Well, I'm kind of a risk taker. I didn't know it was maybe his first time out. And so we were out, and started out really great, beautiful day, calm lake. We didn't think of checking the weather. We never did this before. So, but in the middle of the lake, a storm comes up. I remember grabbing the mast and my son in each hand, laying on the floor and hoping and praying that somehow we would make it to shore. And we didn't look for the place where we came from. We looked for the closest shore we could find. And learning the truth of the old adage, any port is fine when you're in a storm. Just get there, Didn't care when or how we got there or where it was from. We were happy just to get to land. Well, Mark chapter 4, most of you know the story. And it's going to be a fun morning because we're going to think about some of the things that happen in storms in life. Day started out beautiful. It was a wonderful setting on the Sea of Galilee. I don't know if you can picture, but an amphitheater of grass going right down to the edge of the water. A crowd of people there getting ready to listen to Jesus. He was in the boat right at the edge of the shore as kind of his platform. And when we read this story, it was a wonderful setting. And everyone was listening to Jesus as he began to tell his parables, and he told his stories. The people were mesmerized by what he was saying, and they were just spellbound the whole day. I've heard a lot of speakers in my life, but I never heard one that I could listen to all day. But you could listen to Jesus all day because he could capture you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. We are told from the scriptures in verse 35, the same day when evening had come, he said unto them, let us cross over to the other side. Of course, these fishermen were used to this. Now, when they had left the multitude, they took him along in the boat as he was, and other little ships were also with him. The nice evening didn't end up that way because the Bible says that a great windstorm arose and the waves beat into the boat, so it was already filling up with water. What happens when a boat fills up with water? The Titanic and other tragic stories tell us that it sinks. And so the disciples were afraid. I can understand the panic. I've kind of been there a little bit, not like they were, but it's one thing to be in a storm on land, which we were this week. It's another thing to be on a storm. There's no way on the water. There's no shelter. There's no place to find a sweet place to stay. And they panicked. But Jesus did not. In fact, the Bible tells us he was in the stern asleep on a pillow. Wow, that's interesting. We know the rest of the story. They woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" They must have known that he could help. Don't you care that we're about to go under? And he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased and there was a great calm. And then he asked the disciples this question: "Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith?" They feared exceedingly and said one to another, "Who can this be that even the winds and the seas obey him?" Did you know Jesus can do anything? He's all powerful. He can step in when you're having a problem. He can be there for you when you hit the wall in some situation in your life. Several things stand out in this. We're going to look at a few of the thoughts. Number one, we will face storms in this life. How many found that out? Storms come our way. We don't even have to try to find them. They just come to us. Storms are a part of life, and the storms of life are real. Storms come and go. They don't last forever. Thank the Lord for that. But they can leave havoc in the wake of the situation that we're in. Storms are are in very intensities. I don't like storms. You don't like storms. We wish we could skip them all. But we can avoid some, but not all. The second thing is Christians are not immune to storms. So if you're in a storm, don't think that you're backslidden. Don't think that you're a problem. It just happens to all of us because the scripture says rain falls on the just and on the unjust. It hits us all. I don't understand that. When we get to heaven, we could probably ask that question, but when we see Jesus, we won't care. Amen. The verse that we used last week, in this world we have trouble, but take heart, Jesus said, I have overcome the world. Number 3, storms can come up suddenly. Sometimes they're right on us. Storms come sometimes out of nowhere, and storms can come on a good day. We're cruising along, a storm. Business is going well, a storm. Family's doing great, a storm. Kids are doing fine, a storm. Great job, a storm. Finances are strong, and a storm comes. Vicki thought we were doing well. We thought we were pretty well set up. We paid off our home so I could quit my job, and it was going pretty good. I went to teen camp to counsel the inner city kids from Minneapolis, and while I was there, I was doing this nice thing for the Lord. And while I was there, a big tree goes down in our backyard. And Vicki calls and says, we just lost a tree. And she shows up, and I can't do anything till I get home. And so I looked up in the phone book people that could take trees out. So I got a bid. And the guy says, oh, I can do that for $1,800. $1,800 what? $1,800. And so I thought, I'll just do it myself. Got some help, and we did get it done. But then, because of the storm, we needed a new roof due to the hail. And our garage door went. Furnace needed to be replaced. Now, our house is only 13 or 14 years old. What's going on? Oh, just the air conditioner went. Minor repair down in my, the water heater went. Minor repair down in my screened-in porch. Turned out there was a lot of damage, and we were able to fit that into 1 year. Oh, I'll tell you. Start to wonder what's going on. It impacts you a little bit. Takes a little. It makes things a little tight. We have to figure things out. Realize it was kind of fairly minor compared to some of the major storms that people go through. And the good news is we made it. We survived. Everything turned out okay. Waiting for the next thing not to break. I didn't know if you were listening. How many know that there are storms of all sizes? There are little storms, there are medium-sized storms, there are big storms. And my parents had a big storm when I was little. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't even old enough to think about it, but my parents didn't know what to do. Our family was doing great. There were 6 of us, 4 girls and 2 boys, when the major storm hit our family. But thankfully, Jesus was in our boat. 5 years earlier, my dad had come to Christ. And 10 days later, Mom got saved. So I was born 2 years after that. I was 3 years old when the storm hit. It wasn't a little storm, it was huge. The terrible disease of diphtheria hit our home. and it was unbelievable. Why? Why our family? Mom and Dad were just figuring out spiritual things. Why would this come to us? I don't know that answer. But why now? It's hard to believe that we're caught in the middle of a violent storm as new Christians, and it was a hard time for our family. The storm wreaked havoc on our family. Two of my older sisters died. One was 9, one was 7, and the 9-year-old felt like she was called to India. And so they sent my brother and I upstairs when my sister passed away, and the coroner came. And how many are old enough to remember the skeleton keys? That little skeleton key, the hole, it's about this big, and it's big enough for a skeleton key. How many have never seen a skeleton key? Wow, surprises me. Anyway, we were sent upstairs, and I came down and I looked through the hole of that skeleton key, see what was going on, because havoc was going on in our family. And I saw them wheel out my sister. And I still can see that vividly in my mind, even though I was just 3 years old. And the storm threatened to take my mother's life. She was at death's door at the University of Minnesota for about 6 weeks, and we didn't have insurance, and so who knows what's going to happen. The rest of the family was in quarantine. We couldn't go outside, and none of us could go to the funerals, plural. Here's a picture that was in the newspaper of my dad and my older sister, my brother and I, looking out the window. I don't know how they got us to do that, but it's part of the news for the city of Farmington, Minnesota back then. This is a storm that could have ruined our family. Sometimes it ruins families when crisis hit. But Jesus was in my parents' boat. If you have Jesus in your boat, you can almost do anything. You can almost go through any crisis. You can take on a lot of things in life that we couldn't take on. Jesus was in my parents' boat. The church was there for us. Let me just say this. When the church is functioning right, there's nothing like the church. Church took in our family, our 4 kids, and really made a difference. When the quarantine was over, we could go to someone else's house. Mom was desperately fighting for her life at the University of Minnesota, but she had read how Hezekiah had asked the Lord for 15 years more on his life. And Mom prayed and said, God, would you give me 15 years to raise my 2 girls and my 2 boys? And God answered her prayer. A couple years later, my little sister was born. Then 12 years later, my little brother was born. I like to call him my little brother because he's 6'5" and weighs about 280. This is my little brother. But God, my mom said, God, would you give me 15 years? Mom got 3 sets of 15 years. She lived 45 more years after she had diphtheria. And we got the privilege of letting her see some of her grandchildren. Why our family? Brand new Christians. I don't know. If you're going through a crisis and a problem, I don't know why, but I know this. If Jesus is in your boat, you can make it. Mom and Dad had faith. They kind of had the no matter what kind of faith. Like Job and the 3 Hebrew children. If you do help us, great, but nevertheless, we're going to serve you. We're going to serve you with all of our heart. Their faith sustained them. Their faith comforted them. Their faith strengthened them. And I never heard them blame God. Never heard them blame God. I just watched them reach out to the Lord. I know that they didn't realize, but the fate of other little ships in their life depended upon how my parents weathered the storm. I just want you to think about this for a moment. People are watching your life. Don't tell anyone you're a Christian, because they'll start watching you then. They'll put the pressure on. Because I'm a Christian. Okay, what do Christians do in these situations? I know some of the results that come from that. Dad used to pray for every member of his family, every member of my mom's family, every night at the supper table. And most of the extended family eventually found the Lord. It was unbelievable. Ended up wanting the kind of faith they saw Mom and Dad have. And I grew up hearing Dad call their names out before the Lord. Saw both sets of my grandparents come to Jesus, one in their 70s, two in their 80s, and one in their 90s, because God helps us as we continue to reach out. And I know we, the other little ships, my brothers and sisters and I, grew up in a home where my parents modeled how to serve the Lord. That's bringing me to my fourth point. What happens to my boat in the storm affects other people that are on the same sea. Remember, the disciples' boat was not the only boat on the sea. There were all kinds of boats out there. And I think we have a little... When that thing calms down, people say, wow, how did that happen? And so the other little ships were in the same storm and were impacted by the sudden calm, just like Jesus' boat was. When Jesus calms a storm, be it at sea or in your life, it sets in motion a series of long-term ripple effects. You know, now, my sister Mary, she's the oldest, and I want you to just, for a minute, look at our family. Mary, with her family, her kids and her grandkids, they're 12. My sister Elda, they're 2. There are 11 of us. My brother Carl, 6. Carol, 17. And Greg, 12. There are now 60 other little ships who've been directly impacted by how my parents handled the tragedy in their life. It's amazing what the Lord does. Now, on any Sunday, on any special day, my siblings are trying to serve the Lord. Their kids are trying to serve the Lord. I have a friend, his name is Rick Ross. His parents were great pastors. They always pastored little churches. The last church they had 27 people. And Rick says this: my brother, my sister, and my brother, my sister, and myself, and our kids, on any given Sunday, a pastor that pastored 27 people, on any given Sunday, his kids and grandkids are pastoring 22,000 people. And there's a peel-off on your life. There's a peel-off that helps. Think about the people that you have touched. Think about the fallout or the blessing that comes from your life, like my parents and like Rick Ross's parents. My last point doesn't mean I'm at the end of the sermon, but number 5 was the outcome are different when Jesus is in the boat. It has been said to have God in your life doesn't mean sailing in a boat with no storms. It means sailing in a boat that the storms cannot sink. And I said it also means that God will help you handle whatever you face in your life. He'll either calm the waters, deliver you from the storm, or he'll help you navigate through life during the process. Someone put it this way: sometimes he calms the storm, other times he calms his child. Have you ever been flooded with peace in the middle of a tragedy? I have. You have. That's the Lord's presence giving us strength. I don't know about you, but I want to make sure Jesus is in my boat. My home boat, my work boat, my party boat. Some people think Christians can't have parties. I'm a party guy. I like parties, but they can have Jesus in my boat during the party. And amen. He will be there, and he will help us through whatever our needs come. You find your boat in the middle of the storm. If Jesus is there, he's going to help you. When Jesus said, "Peace, be still," the wind ceased and there was a great calm. That great calm affected the disciples and everybody else that was on that lake that day. Jesus can even speak peace in the storm when people make their own storms. And one of our first target families up in Hibbing, one of the guys was the best drunk I ever met. How did you come up with that fact? He was the best. Well, he's the only guy I knew that blew a hobby farm and $10,000 on one drunk. So you got to put him at the top somewhere when you accomplish that. I was told, I wasn't there at the party, but I was told that he had a drunk going on from April till October. It was at his farm. Everyone could come. It was all free, and he would order semi-loads of hard liquor, one after the other, until they were gone. He'd order another one. And so it's a long party. His wife showed up at our church on Easter Sunday, our first Easter, and she found the Lord. And we began picking up her girls, and I started to visit him. I visited him for 17 months. I never mentioned the Lord to him during those 17 months because he didn't want me to. Did you ever visit someone and the hair on their back of the neck stands straight out? You know what that means? Don't bother me. So I just kept visiting him. One Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I pulled up to their house. And I walked in, and he said, quote, "St. John, I want to get saved." So I was slain in the spirit. No, I just fainted. No, not really. You know, if someone says, "I want to get saved," you don't have to tell them the 4 spiritual laws. You don't have to go through the Romans road. You just have to lead them to the Lord. So I went over and I put my hands on his knees. I said, "Don, let's pray." And he got gloriously saved. It was amazing what happened in his life. And he comes to church that night, 4 hours less drunk. So he's making progress already. And we had a testimony service. And he stood up. He said, "I don't know much about testimonies, but I want to get saved." Now, I always wanted to tell my dad what to do, but I never did until this time. I said, "Dad, this is the only time my dad was at a Sunday night service in Hibbing, one time. I said, "Dad, would you come and kneel at the altar?" Then I said, "Don, if there's anyone in this town that knows how to pray for you, it's my dad. And he's kneeling right here. Why don't you come and let him pray for you?" Don was transformed. I mean, when he and his family got saved, it ruined some of the parties at the corner bar. And anyway, Don had a big family. The Tronsons had 10 kids, so there were 9 brothers and sisters. Most of them had 5 or 6 kids. If you could just get them in church, you could have a nice church when we only had about 30 at the time. And so Don says to his kids, he has 6 kids, 3 of them are married. He said to them, he said, "We're going to church next Sunday, you bunch of heathens." And so they showed up. We grew by 33% in one Sunday. We had more sinners in the church than we had Christians that day. And so, by the way, those kids aren't heathens anymore. His brother's family started coming right away. There are 5 generations because I won his dad to the Lord. He got saved. His kids got saved. Their kids got saved. Well, anyway, I ran into some of those kids at camp, the kids and grandkids. I think we have a picture of that here. They don't look like, and don't necessarily look like Bible college students, but they're serving the Lord. And they are serving Jesus they're not singing in the bars anymore. They're singing on the worship teams in Assembly of God churches across the Iron Range. It's pretty amazing. The great calm that Jesus brought into Don's life and his family had a ripple effect. I don't know how many hundred people over the years have come to the Lord because of that, but one person said, he was bad enough so everybody knew. And I was talking to, sometimes our church, when we were in a building program, would get people from the courthouse, they would send them to our church because they had to spend 60 days working for whatever you call it. Somebody knows what it is, but anyway, to take care of their problem. And I told this guy, well, he said, I'm an electrician. I said, do you know Don Tronson? He said, yes. I said, well, he's working at our church. Why don't you come? He said, if Don Tronson walked into a church and it didn't fall over, I want to see the church. And so I said, come. And he came and he got saved. It wasn't safe to bring people into the church because they would get saved. When Jesus calms a storm, it affects your life. It affects a lot of people. That's why new converts always bring more people to church than the rest of us, because their friends are looking for a place where their storm can be calmed, and Jesus is the answer. And so there's not a lot of ways to get to heaven. There's only one, through Jesus. And so I hope you have him in your boat. I close with this thought. There are some things that we can only learn in a storm. The disciples learned, what manner of man is this in our boat? Wow. When Jesus calms the storm, he causes them to say, who is this, that even the winds and the seas obey him? In the storm, God makes himself known. We learn a lot from God in the midst of our storms. Sometimes he calms the storm, sometimes he calms us, but he becomes our refuge. We sense his nearness. We discover his faithfulness. How many of you have been in a horrible storm in your life and you just sense his presence, even though it's not going so well, but the presence is there. The presence of the Lord is what helps us through these kind of things. He's our refuge in time of trouble. We emerge from such storms different than we started. When you come out of a storm, you're not going to be the same. You're going to be stronger, wiser, and ready for growth. It's been said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. How many thought you were going to die sometimes in the middle of some of your storms? Storms have a way of bringing us back to the basics. Sometimes it takes a Jonah storm to bring us back on course. It took a fierce storm for Jonah to get where he belonged. And God cared so much about Jonah, but he also cared about Nineveh. Here's what God said because Jonah said, I know you would save these people, and I didn't want you to. And God said, should I not care for this great city? And finally, this thought to consider. Sometimes the storm in our life will blow us to the place where we were supposed to be. And so stand with me, please. Christy, thank you for your ministry here. In this life, we'll face a variety of storms. Perhaps you find yourself in the middle of a storm. It might be a minor storm. It might be an epic storm. Maybe you're in a storm today. I want to encourage you like the disciples did. They called upon Jesus right in the middle of their storm. I know you can call upon the Lord any place. You can call upon the Lord anytime. But we're about the altar. There's something that happens at the altar. Over the years, thousands of people at Summit's altars have been transformed. They found out that God can meet their needs and God can minister to them and He will help you. He's a very present help in time of trouble. If you need the Lord to touch you today, it's possible that someone is here who you don't know for sure if Jesus is in your boat. You can make that happen. You can bring Him into your life today. If you don't know if He's in your boat, what are you waiting for? This is a good time to do it. Bring yourself to Jesus. It's comforting to know that God is with you. Why don't you come while Christy sings? Altar workers will come. You maybe need someone just to pray with you in the middle of a storm of some sort. Our altar workers are coming now, and they'll be here to help you, minister to you, and God is going to touch you. Come while she sings.